The market doesn't know what keeps you up at night. It doesn't know when you want to retire, and it doesn't know how old you are. The simple truth is, the market doesn't care. But if you care, you've tuned into the right place. You're listening to Investor Resources, bringing clarity to the confusing world of finance. Here are your hosts of Investor Resources, Don Creech and Perry Sykes.
This is Don Creech.
And this is Perry Sykes, and welcome to the Investor Resources Podcast.
So one of the things that has happened with increasing frequency since COVID-19, particularly, but it has not abated since then as general economic conditions have improved, is the flim-flam man. The flim-flam man
Indeed.
is back on your telephone. You have
In a big way.
Yep. You've probably had some of these calls. I know our calls start somewhere about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm pretty sure it's people overseas who have no idea what time zones are.
Don't know what a time zone is. It makes it tougher for their scam to work, but it doesn't stop them from calling.
So scams aren't new. The most recent one to be in the news is the FTX, the cryptocurrency scam. I mean, this is typical. People want to get in on the startup of a new big thing because that's where all the money's made. You want to be the initial investors in it. And just like Bernie Madoff, the FTX deal had this allure of high returns, and there were enough people in the early stages bragging about how much money they'd made that a lot of people who were trying to catch up with losses from the last bear market, 2020, or maybe still catching up from 08 and 9, wanted to jump in. Quick recovery. Bad decision.
Really bad. That's one of the major red flags for scams out there. If anyone's telling you the key to this is that we have to move fast, you have to make a decision quickly, you've got to move now or you're going to miss it. And that fear of missing out really drives a lot of investors, especially like you said, Don, people who've recently had a loss. They are desperate to make that back up, and they believe that, okay, here's a real opportunity, especially something like FTX. You know, I've seen them on the news. This is a real company, and crypto's, made many people wealthy. That's the problem. That's the grain of truth that's in the lie. FTX, of course, was just a house of cards, and the whole thing came falling down. But part of their scam was you got to hurry up. You got to get your money in now at the beginning. You got to make a move now. And that's a red flag. Take a step back and take another look at whatever someone's pitching.
Well, that's especially true. You get a phone call and they're asking for any type of personal information. They assume that they know you, particularly they have phone numbers for baby boomers, the elderly. And they say, well, you have hearing aid problems, you have eye problems, you have health problems, you have heart problems, and we can help you with this. We can help you with your medical care or whatever. All we need to do is confirm that we're talking to the right person. And they start asking you some pretty innocent questions. Your first question should be, who the heck are you? Because unless they're calling for your appointment and you know the doctor's name, the doctor's office, they aren't going to call you. Your bank's not going to call you. Your brokerage firm's not going to call you. You get a call and say, we're with the security department of your local bank. You should say, no, I don't think this is a secure call after all. Goodbye.
I don't think you are. And the numbers we've seen, the amount of online scamming is just increasing by a huge amount. It's been going up about over 20% a year since the year 2000, but just in 2023, it's up 85% over 2022. So and they do it because it works, and they prey so often on the elderly. They will be calling people looking for somebody, both because that's who has the money and that's who can be more easily convinced that, well, this person sounds so nice on the line. This can't be a total scam. Some of this has got to be true. I better go along with it. Plus, I don't want my money at risk, so I better listen to what they're saying. And that's what they're waiting for, just that one person that's willing to go along with them. And, don't, like you said, Don, don't be that person. And when you hear them start asking questions that if they were anyone important connected to you, they would already know. If they start asking those questions, just run, 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 run. You can call your bank later and see if that was legit or not. There's nothing you need to do on that initial phone call. Just stay away.
Scam artists also know that if they get away with it, and once you figure out that you've lost your money, embarrassment is going to override common sense. And more than likely, people who have been scammed out of money are not going to tell family, friends, or even authorities because they're too embarrassed and ashamed, which makes them susceptible to the next one. Because now that they've lost it, statistically, this doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. And that is, if I've lost money, I want to make it up, and I need to make it up quickly before my family finds out. So they're vulnerable for the next one. And if you got scammed once, guess what happens to your phone number? It goes into a very special database.
You've been identified, as a soft touch on the scammer side, and they're going to come back again. And the fact that they know you're probably not going to tell anyone lets them act with virtual impunity. And again, those older people don't want to look like they can't handle their own finances anymore. They don't want to be in that situation, so they don't want anybody to know, "Oh, I just got taken." So it's very important to ask those questions to people in your family who have a lot of money, have access to funds, have access to be able to move it, and maybe they just make sure they're on the lookout for those kinds of contacts to be coming, because they're going to come. They're coming so often right now. It's so prevalent, both in phone calls and in emails to get things started. You really need to help them pay attention.
So these scams aren't just phone scams. They actually happen in the market too. If we go back a couple of decades at this point in time, we go back to 2000 when Enron folded. When Enron turned out to be a house of cards. I mean, it was a phenomenal, on the stock market, it was a phenomenally strong company during the 90s. Anybody who was anybody was going to own a piece of Enron. And with the retirement plan, if you work for a big company, the stock's going up, guess how you fund your retirement plan? With company stock. And
had a lot of,
I'm going to be retired next year. Just look at all the money we're making.
They had a captive audience, and everybody was just pouring the money into into their 401k plan. And there was so much verification that Enron was doing so well. Not only was the stock price going up, they did lots of media. And anytime they talked to anybody from Enron, they always said the same thing. If there's someone from Enron there, that's the smartest person in the room. Enron knows how to get it done. They know what they're doing. They're leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. So there was all kinds of verification and validation for the people, for what they were saying, for what they were doing. And the whole thing was a scam. And part of it was true because some of the people at Enron who were out there promoting all this stuff, they didn't know. They didn't know it was a total scam. So they were true believers in the whole process. They were just out there, unfortunately, shilling for the house. And boy, when it went south, it all went south because it was just a complete shakedown. And they had nothing underpinning any of their big gains, any of their money. Nothing in their share prices could hold up. And it was a disaster. But that's what can happen when everyone gets on board and says, hey, this is really great. Everyone should do this. That bandwagon gets rolling, and it's hard to ignore.
Well, this brings up the risk of investing in individual stocks. Most people want to buy an individual stock because of Peter Lynch and the Magellan Fund back in the 70s. Buy a company that you know. You buy their product, and you like their product, buy the company. That was his theme. That was his marketing theme anyway. He did more work than that. That wasn't that simple. And too often people hear of a good company and they want to jump on the bandwagon. In fact, I just pulled out of Costco a couple hours ago, and 2 cars away from me was a Rivian pickup. And I'm thinking, well, that's a pretty cool looking truck. But
cool looking rig, you bet.
Rivian is losing $33,000 on every vehicle they sell. We can't call that a going concern. We also aren't calling it a scam. But if you're going to buy individual stocks, you really need to do some deep digging, starting not with the story, but with the footnotes in the financial statements, and then work your up the ladder to where you finally get to the story. But you
And
need to
most people
start.
just don't do that. Yep. Rivian's a perfect example, Don. They see that Rivian pickup. It's a beautiful piece of work. It's electric. It's the coming thing. It's got to be great. And then when you own one, it's like, well, I own one. Everybody must want to own one. Therefore, this is going to be a good investment. And like you said, it's not only a good investment. They've got some really tough sledding to do, just trying to break even, let alone have a little growth. But unless you do your own homework, you're never going to see that. And that's a scam you perpetrate on yourself. That's a scam that's out there to be found. It's out there to be seen, and you just believe the narrative. You're just like, well, this must be a great idea. Let's go buy some. And that's a very dangerous thing, especially these days when there are so many companies that can get in so much trouble so quickly. And now everything's available online. There is nothing that goes by in a public company you can't know. And that's what you need to do. You have to get out there and take a look for yourself. Like you said, Peter Lynch used to say, if it's a great product that you use, you should probably look at the company. Peter Lynch got to talk to the board of directors. He would just call them and they would pick up the phone. We don't get the same advantage. So it's much more work to dig in and look at that balance sheet, look at the cash flow. But if you're going to buy individual securities, there's really no option. You have to go take a look.
So even if you're buying something as mundane as Coca-Cola or Pepsi,
yeah,
guess what is cratering their stock? It's the new weight loss drugs. Walmart has reported that the people who come through Walmart and buy the weight loss drugs are buying fewer groceries, and the Coke and Pepsi sales are off. I looked at the stock this morning, and they're just on a downtrend since the high earlier this year. And so even something that's a consumer staple isn't necessarily going to do you well if you haven't done your homework, and then you still have to pay attention. That's more work, and that is work most people don't want to do. That is part of what we do as investment advisors, is the ongoing monitoring of what's going on in the market and whether or not we should be in or out. We have a webinar that we did, and that's going to be posted here shortly on our YouTube channel, where we talk about these problems of market-based assumptions and why so many of them lead to bad conclusions. Watch for that. You'll find it interesting. So I think with regard to Enron, it's basically a function of companies use loopholes that Congress creates when they have no knowledge of the unintended consequences. But what we do know is the intended consequence of responding to a scam phone call is disaster for you. Pay attention. Don't answer personal questions. In any event, if you think it's legitimate, ask for their phone number so you can call them back, because right now you're just really busy and can't talk. And they won't give you their phone number. That's the first and only clue that you need this was a scam.
Which is why you need to not be in a hurry. Yeah, give yourself a chance.
Yeah, I think for us, that's probably a wrap.